Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, February 20th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. Well, today we have a great number of feasts that are very interesting. There's a mention of Vergine del Carmelo in Messagne, in Brindisi, Apulia, Italy. I'm not sure exactly what that feast relates to, but it's Our Lady of Mount Carmel. The Abbot Orsini tells us that they celebrate Our Lady of Boulogne-sur-Mer, Our Lady of Boulogne on the Sea in France. The story is told that in the year 636, a small group of people standing on the seashore witnessed a ship without oars or sails come into the harbor of Boulogne. It finally came to rest in the estuary, seemingly of its own accord. One of the witnesses boarded the boat and confirmed that there was no one on board and that the vessel had no rudders or sails. The ship, however, bore a statue of Our Lady. Taking hold of it to bring it to land, a voice was heard saying, "I choose your city as a place of grace." The citizens welcomed Mary to their city by erecting to her a shrine, which reached the height of its glory in the 12th century. That's pretty impressive that Our Lady would come on a boat with no rudder, oars, or sails and say, "This is the place I want to live." And they also celebrate, and this is a very interesting feast, the Madonna della Scala in Massafra in Taranto, Apulia, Italy. Right? So the Madonna della Scala, which sometimes they translate as Our Lady, Madonna of the Stair, but it also might be of the Ladder, which is probably more accurate, right? So anyways, the story goes that in the first millennium AD, in a very difficult spot to get into in the Valley of Roses, hunters found a wild deer kneeling before a fresco of Madonna and Child, apparently from the crypt of Saint Maria Prisca, an old Saint Mary's, right? Which had collapsed in the earthquake of 324, right? Near a great staircase on the gorge wall, a chapel was built to house the Madonna of the Deer, right? Known as, since the 900s, as the Madonna of the Stair or Ladder, right? The present shrine opened for worship in 1737. A few years later, the residents of Massafra credited Our Lady of the Stair with saving them from an earthquake that devastated the region on February 20th, 1743. And in 1776, the Pope designated her the city's patroness. Right? And for that reason, the city holds its festivities in her honor on February 20th, right? Again, despite the great antiquity tradition assigns to the fresco, art historians date it to the 1200s. Okay. So that's what it says in English. That's the English summary. The story is actually much more interesting in the Italian version. So again, the story is pretty much the same. There's two hunters who are hunting this beautiful deer. They try to capture it, but in vain. And they're following it when all of a sudden it stops and kneels before, with it's like a dirty wall. So the men clean the wall and they find this image of Our Lady with Child, right? And so then they decide they just leave the deer, okay, bye, and then they go and try to tell people what they found, right? So they carry it in procession, this image, to the church of the place, right? But what happens? The following day, the image returns to where they had first found it. So they said, okay, well, then we'll just leave it there. So then they built a little church there. And like it said, sometimes it's called Our Lady of the Stair or of the Ladder, right? There's an image that's painted, maybe it looks like maybe from the 1700s, with Our Lady with the Ladder. But there's also deer in the picture, which is kind of cool. There's a kneeling deer and then there's another one. Because another legend says that later, because obviously she's sometimes called Our Lady of the Deer. On the feast of Our Lady of the Deer, on one occasion, this is what tradition says, two deer, a mother and a daughter deer, went to the church. And this is literally, the Italian says, "La madre appena giunta scoppiava, e le sue carni venivano cotte e date alla migliaia di pellegrini moltiplicandosi miracolosamente." Which literally means the mother deer, as soon as she got there, exploded. And her meat was cooked and used to feed the thousands of pilgrims, and it was miraculously multiplied. Meanwhile, the daughter deer entered into the church and knelt before the icon of Our Lady. So there you go. The only story of a Marian shrine where there are exploding deer that feed people with their explosion. But it's a pretty cool miracle. So that's what we celebrate today in the Marian world on February 20th. For today's Marian meditation, taken from the book by Father Ildefonso Villar, we start with Meditation 40. It has 3 points, and it's about the road to Bethlehem. In fact, he entitles it, On the Road to Bethlehem. So, the first point, and that's what we'll consider today, is entitled, The Register. The decree of Augustus, enjoining a general registration in the whole of the empire, gave the occasion for this journey to Bethlehem, enabling Our Lady to exercise those most beautiful and difficult virtues, submission and obedience. Contemplate Mary in the company of Saint Joseph in their poor dwelling of Nazareth. Poor indeed, but nothing is wanting to them. With the greatest love she had prepared, down to the minutest detail, the things required for her son's birth so near approaching. The little cradle had been made by Joseph. The swaddling clothes had been stitched and embroidered by her. It is true there is poverty in everything, but there is much love. And love has such a store of ingenuity and inventiveness. Love has taught her how best to comfort and receive her dear divine child. All of a sudden, a rumor going round the village reaches the humble couple. Soon they will have the confirmation of that rumor. Everyone is to be compelled to go and get registered in his place of origin. And since she and Joseph belong to the clan of David, there is no choice. They must undertake the journey to the royal city of Bethlehem. What a setback! How can they undertake such a journey now, just when the divine birth is expected? And that too just at the whim of a proud man, who tyrannically decrees that it should be so. Is there no means of evading the order? Could it at least be deferred? Why not wait? Just a little, at least until the happy event has taken place. Yet our Heavenly Mother speaks not a word, utters no criticism, no protest. Although with a heavy heart, she submits to the divine will, trusts in God, thrusts herself into his arms, and sets herself to obey. Was there at any time any person anywhere with better reason to disregard an order than our Blessed Lady then? If she had not submitted to the order or had just ignored it, who could have blamed her? Would we not have said that she had done very well, that it would have been a great imprudence to embark on such a journey at such a time? And yet Mary does not listen to the prudence of the worldly wise. She thinks only of obedience, ignoring all else. What a submission of will and judgment! Note this well, because this is the hardest point of obedience. She had ample reasons to excuse her, but with Mary, obedience comes first. For above obedience, there is nothing. A hard, painful, and practical lesson is thus given to us by Mary. So for today's reading from the Admirable Heart of Mary, we continue reading from chapter 2, Meekness, Patience, and Clemency of God, mirrored in the Admirable Heart of Mary. So once again in this chapter, St. John Eudes is having us reflect on God's meekness, clemency, and his mercy, and how that's mirrored in Mary's heart. True, the Blessed Virgin does not entertain the same sentiments for all sinners, nor does she treat them all alike. She distinguishes between those in hell, whom she knows to be irreconcilable enemies of God, and those on earth, whom she considers still capable of being reconciled to his divine majesty. Hence, her heart is filled with great and just indignation towards the wretched creatures in hell, for she is most perfectly united to God, and therefore shares in all his adorable inclinations. She loves what God loves, and hates what he hates, approves what he approves, and condemns what he condemns. As the damned will forever be the object of God's wrath, they shall be called the people with whom the Lord is angry forever. That's from the prophet Malachi, chapter 1, verse 4. So shall they forever be the object of the anger of God's mother. Her love and charity for God and the friends of God are greater than the ardor of all angels and saints together, and so also is her hatred of God's irreconcilable enemies greater than that of all the denizens of heaven. But towards the sinners who are still in this world, which is a place of mercy, where our all-bountiful Mother has established the throne and empire of her mercy and clemency, her heart is so filled with sweetness and benignity that the venerable and holy abbot Blosius declares, "The world does not hold any sinner so detestable that this pious virgin should not be disposed to open to him the arms of her clemency and her most merciful heart. Provided he seek her assistance, she will always have the power and the will to reconcile him to her Son."
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.